138 o'clock.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. Let me close music here. And welcome to the Sportcat Show, the Paranormal guys. Old show. Let me push a button here and keep us legal in Australia, and we will get this show on the road. Oh, I can find the button now. Yeah, button. Where's the button?
Sportcat's Daily Gazette.
Except that's not it.
Broadcasting across Australia on Dare Media Group radio stations, this is the Sportcat Show, uncovering secret chapters, strange encounters,
and the occasional technical mishap.
No, there was always the technical mishap. Hello, everybody, and once again, welcome to the Sportcat Show, formerly the Paranormal guys. We got a great show lined up for you tonight. As always, our first guest had him backstage for a little bit, and we were chatting. Mike Hingson, he's got a great story to tell. He's written several books, and he's we'll call it a survivor of 9/11. So everybody here, make sure if you're listening live, come over and join the chat. And if you have a pertinent question and you're not rude, I will ask our guests. Let me bring him out. Mike. Hello, Mike. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. Good to be here. And I will say that I couldn't hear it all, but I was listening to the Morse code that you were transmitting during the song, and I did get podcasts. So the Morse code you're sending is legal. That's a good thing. I'm a ham radio operator. I focus on those
things.
Too.
Yeah, me too.
WB6NHM.
Oh, well, KD4TZG. So, yeah.
There you go.
So, Mike, I was telling you earlier, I'm a paramedic firefighter. And of course, at the time of 9/11, I was in a class in East Tennessee. But strangely enough, I had been associated with Fairfax County Fire and Rescue Department, and we had been in the World Police Fire Games, and we went to the championship against FDNY. Ooh. So I got to meet a lot of the guys, and that day was a horrible day for everyone in the world. Yeah. So your story is incredible from everything I've read on so far. You're not only just a brave man, you've got a great story to tell. So I don't want to pester you about details because I'm sure everybody asks. Can you tell us the story?
Sure. So I want to give a little bit of background that I think will help, because so many people have misconceptions about blindness, what blind people are, and what blind people can do. And I've been blind my entire life. In fact, it was discovered that I was blind about 4 months after I was born, and the doctors told my parents to send me off to a home for handicapped children because no blind child could ever grow up to amount to anything or be a constructive, contributing member to society. And my parents told the learned medical profession in Chicago that they were wrong. And of course, I could grow up to do whatever I chose with my life, and they were going to give me that opportunity. And so I grew up believing in myself. And although I didn't verbalize it this way for a long time, I grew up believing blindness isn't what defines me. What defines me is what I do and what I choose to do with my life, and the skills that I acquire and learn and know, like Morse code, being a ham radio operator. But the point is that I grew up believing that I could do whatever I chose. And so I was able to hold some jobs along the way, and eventually ended up being hired to open an office in New York City by Quantum Corporation, which back in 1999 was a Fortune 500 company. And they made disk drives, but they also purchased the division that I became a part of called ATL, which is a company that made very large scale libraries at that time using high density digital linear tape cartridges so that people could attach our libraries to their networks and back up all their data. And the Security Exchange Commission required that all Wall Street firms did that. They had to keep all their data backed up offsite for 7 years. And we provided the technology to do that. So I was hired to open an office because I'd opened another office for a company earlier. And I looked for places, and I wasn't satisfied with what I was finding in Midtown Manhattan, but I just had this idea that working in the World Trade Center would be very expensive. Well, I wasn't finding anything, so I bit the bullet. I called the Port Authority real estate people, and they're the ones who rent out the space in the World Trade Center. And by the time we were done, um, I actually negotiated. I actually negotiated a great rate for office space. Um, and so we opened an office on the 78th floor of Tower 1 of the World Trade Center. And after the office was opened, I hired people. But I also spent a lot of time walking around the World Trade Center, learning where things were, learning how the building functioned, learning what the emergency evacuation procedures would be, learning what the fire department does. And I did all of that because I was the leader of an office. And I knew that most people would rely on signs. I don't and wouldn't. But I believe that knowledge is power. So I learned all of that stuff. And so the result of all that was that on September 11th, about 8:45 in the morning, I was in my office with a colleague from our corporate office, David Frank, and we were there because we were going to be conducting some sales seminars. And the last thing we had to do before the seminars were to begin was that we were going to create a list of all of the people who would be attending the seminars and fax it on letterhead to the World Trade Center security people, so that when people came to the security desk and said, I'm supposed to go to the Quantum ATL office and be a part of the seminar, rather than calling us up 50 or 60 times, they could just look at the list. And if the name was on the list, then they would let them up. So literally, I was reaching for letterhead when suddenly we heard a muffled kind of thud, a little bit of an explosion, not very loud. But then the building shuddered. And as I'm tipping my hand toward the camera, that's what the building started to do. It started tipping in one direction. Now, I knew that buildings that were tall were constructed with expansion joints so that if something hit them, the kinetic energy would kind of be absorbed, if you will, and the building wouldn't just break off. But we moved about 20 feet, and I was standing in my office doorway. David was holding onto my desk, and my guide dog Roselle was asleep under my desk. And we thought we were about to take a 78th floor plunge to the street because we had moved so far. And so David and I said goodbye to each other, but then the building stopped and it started moving back the other way. I remember letting my breath out in relief because I had thought we were going to take a 78th floor plunge to the street, but then it got vertical, the building did. And I, as soon as it did, went back into my office, and I met Roselle coming out from under my desk. I took her leash, I told her to sit, and actually I told her to heel, which meant to come around onto my left side and sit, which she did. And about that time, the building literally dropped straight down about 6 or 7 feet. Now, it dropped because, as I said, tall buildings like that are made to be flexible in windstorms and even to be hit by an airplane. Like an airplane hit the Empire State Building in the 1940s because it got lost in a fog bank. But the building on September 11th got hit by an airplane and wouldn't have collapsed if it had just been the airplane hitting the building. But nobody imagined that somebody would deliberately take an aircraft full of 36,000 pounds of jet fuel and deliberately crash it into the building. So no one thought about the infrastructure that could be damaged by the fuel explosion, but that's what happened. Anyway, the building dropped, and then David turned, because he was holding onto my desk, but he turned to our windows facing south and started shouting, "Oh my God, Mike, there's fire and smoke above us. We got to get out of here right now. We can't stay here. There's fire and smoke and the building's on fire. We can't stay." And I just started saying, "Slow down, David." And he said, "No, we got to get out of here right now." And we had a few guests in our conference room. They were eating some breakfast that we had brought up. And they started moving out of the conference room. And I think we're screaming a little bit. And then they heard me tell David, "Slow down, just wait." And so they were waiting to see what was going to happen. And finally, David used what I call the big line. He said, "You don't understand. You can't see it." Well, that's what everybody says, right? And the bottom line is, I did understand. He told me the building was on fire. And he told me that he saw millions of pieces of burning paper falling outside our window, and he saw fire and smoke above us. I believed him, so I knew what he was seeing. But the issue wasn't what he was seeing, what I wasn't seeing. The issue was what David wasn't seeing, which was a dog sitting next to me, wagging her tail, yawning, going, "Who woke me up? I was sleeping real good over here, and now what's going on? I'm awake." And but she wasn't acting fearful. She was just kind of wagging her tail and going, "What's going on here?" And so that was one of the things that told me whatever was going on wasn't such an imminent threat that we couldn't try to evacuate at that moment in an orderly way. So I finally got David to focus. I said, "Get our guests to the stairs, start them down the stairs, come back, and then we'll leave." So he did that while he was out getting our guests to the stairs. And I told him, "Don't let them take elevators because you saw fire. And if that fire gets into the elevator shafts, that's not going to be good." And of course, the fires did get into elevator shafts. But anyway, David took them to the stairs. I called my wife, Karen, who, by the way, also was a person with a so called disability. And I'll say in a little while why I say so called disability, but she was in a wheelchair her whole life. And the media hadn't even gotten the story yet. But I told her that we were going to be leaving because something had happened, an explosion or something, and she wanted to know more, and there was no more to tell her. But then David came back. We swept the office one last time. We went to the stairs and started down. And almost immediately when I got into the stairwell, I began smelling an odor. And the odor was very familiar, but it took me about 4 floors to realize I was smelling the fumes from burning jet fuel. And other people were speculating, wondering what was going on. And so I just spoke up and I said, "This odor I'm smelling is burning jet fuel." And they all said, "Yeah, you're right. We couldn't figure it out, but you're right. It's burning jet fuel. We must have been hit by an airplane." Now, even today, people tell me, "Well, of course, you didn't know what happened because you couldn't see it because you're blind." Well, the reality is nobody knew. Nobody could see it. The fact is, the last time I checked, Superman and X ray vision are fictitious, and the airplane hit between, well, 13 and 21 floors above us, well, not quite that. But yeah, about 13 to 21 floors. So I'd average it at 18 floors above us on the 96th floor. And the reality is that people can't see through 18 floors of concrete, rebar, and steel, and X-ray vision doesn't work. So nobody knew what happened, but we figured out an airplane must have hit the building because I observed that there was burning jet fuel that we were smelling. So we went down the stairs, and a few things happened along the way. There was one place where a woman behind us stopped and said, "I can't go on." And we all stopped and had a group hug and kept her going down the stairs. At about the 50th floor, David suddenly said, "Mike, we're going to die. We're not going to make it out of here." And I just said it in my best teacher's voice because I had a secondary teaching and I have a secondary teaching credential. And I just said in my best voice for yelling at students, "Stop it, David. If Roselle and I can go down these stairs, so can you." And he told me that that brought him out of his funk. And what he wanted to do soon after that was to walk a floor below me and shout up everything that he saw on the stairs. So he asked if I minded. I said no, and I said go ahead. And he he did that. Um, and so I was like on the 48th floor, and he said, "Hey, Mike, I'm on the 47th floor. Nothing here. Going on down." And we went down a few more floors. I was on 45. David said, "Hey, I'm on the 44th floor, Mike. This is where the Port Authority cafeteria is. Not stopping." So why do I mention David and why do I do that? And I do it very deliberately because I think what David did in shouting up to me, and that's what his intent was. Did I really need him to do that? Probably not, but he wanted to and it made him feel better. But it did something else that people don't think about. Anyone within the sound of his voice could hear somebody going down the stairs. "Hey, Mike, 42nd floor, all's good here." Hearing somebody who was focused, calm, and shouting to somebody that they were okay. He had to help keep hundreds, maybe thousands of people from panicking on the stairs because he was shouting. So we went on down the stairs. We met firefighters at the 30th floor and interacted with them a little bit and then continued on down and finally got to the first floor. David got there a floor below me. He got to the first floor. I was on the second floor. And he said, "The water sprinklers are on. You're going to have to run through a curtain of water to get out of the stairwell." Well, why were there water sprinklers on? Well, because if fire had broken out on the stairwell, it wouldn't have been able to get into the lobby because it would have to go through the water. Or if it broke out in the lobby, it wouldn't be able to get into the stairs because it would have to go through the water. And the sprinklers were, it was like a torrential downpour of water. It was like a waterfall. It was amazing. Anyway, we got out into the lobby and we were standing there when this guy comes up and he says he's with the FBI and he'll get us where we need to go. There was somebody shouting on a bullhorn telling people where they should go, telling people don't go outside. And we wondered why they wouldn't just let people go outside the doors from Tower 1 to the outside. But we figured out later that it must be because that's where people were jumping. And so they wanted to keep everybody away from that. And the airplane was above, I think, that. So the bottom line is we followed this FBI guy. We went through and went up an escalator outside Borders Books and found ourselves outside of Tower 1 on the second floor in a plaza as far away from the towers as we could be. And when we got outside, David looked around and he said, Mike, I see fire in Tower 2. Now, we were told to leave the area, but before we did, he said, I see fire in Tower 2. We had no idea what had happened. We thought for the longest time that maybe the fire from Tower 1 that David had seen had just jumped across because it tipped toward Tower 2. We thought maybe the fire just jumped across to Tower 2. But we didn't know. But anyway, we went over to Broadway. We started north on Broadway. We got to Vesey Street, which put us very close to Tower 2. And David said, I want to take pictures of the fire that I see in Tower 2. And we stopped and I tried to call my wife and I couldn't get through because the circuits were busy. People, as we learned later, were saying goodbye to loved ones. But David took his camera out and he took pictures of the fire in Tower 2. And I had just put my phone away and David was putting his camera away when a police officer yelled, Get out of here, coming down. It's coming down. Get out of here. Don't stay here. And we heard this rumble that became this deafening roar. I describe it as kind of a combination of a freight train and a waterfall. You could hear glass breaking and metal clattering and then just Tower 2 collapsing. Everybody turned and ran. David ran. He was gone. And I turned 180 degrees and started running back the way I came with Roselle. We got to Fulton Street, turned right on Fulton Street. We ran about 25 yards and caught up to David. It turns out that was the way he had gone. And he suddenly realized that he had left me and he was about to come back and find me, but we found him first. So we kept running. We were in the dust cloud, all the dirt and debris of Tower 2's collapse. And I kept telling Roselle, go right, right. And you need to understand what a guide dog does and a guide dog doesn't do. Guide dogs don't lead blind people. People always say, well, your guide dog led you out. No, my guide dog did not lead me out. My guide dog could learn how to go to an exit, perhaps. And sometimes they've got the innate sense to do that and are able to. But the bottom line is, it's I who have to make decisions and give the dog directions, left, right, and so on. The dog's job is to make sure that we walk safely. So it's a team. We each have a job to do, and the team works best when we respect each other's jobs. And so when we were running away from all that was going on outside, I kept telling Roselle, right, right, because we were running next to a building on my right, and I wanted her to go into the first opening she could see because we were in this huge dust cloud and we wanted to get out of the dust cloud. And I didn't know whether she could hear me, whether she could see my hand signals or not. But suddenly I heard an opening on the right, and she must have known what I wanted because she turned right, she took one step, and she stopped and she wouldn't move. And I said, Come on, Roselle, keep going. And she wouldn't move. Now, remember what I said before. The dog's job is to make sure that we walk safely. And I suddenly realized there must be a reason why the dog stopped. And I investigated. I stuck out a foot and I stuck my hand along the wall and discovered we were at the top of a flight of stairs. Roselle had done exactly what she was supposed to do. And so I gave her the appropriate real command, which is forward. And we went down into the Fulton Street subway station and stayed with other people down there for about 15 minutes. Then a police officer came and said, You need to leave the area now. Go up and get out of here. The air is clearer up above. We followed him up the stairs through the last little arcade of the Fulton Street subway station, up 2 more flights of stairs and got outside. And the air was a little clearer. It wasn't great. But David looked around and he said, Oh my God, Mike, there's no Tower 2 anymore. And I said, What do you see? And he said, All I see are fingers of pillars of smoke, hundreds of feet tall. It's gone. I said, "Are you sure?" And he said, "Yeah, it's gone." So we stood there a moment. Then we turned and continued to walk west on Fulton Street. We walked for about 10 minutes, and then we were in this little plaza area when suddenly we heard that freight train waterfall sound again, and we knew it must be our tower collapsing. David looked back and said, "There's another dust cloud coming our way." There was a small retaining wall. We got behind it and we ducked down and we waited until everything passed. And then we got up and David said, "Oh my God, Mike, there's no World Trade Center anymore." And I said, "What do you see again?" And he said, "All I see are fingers of fire and flame, hundreds of feet tall and pillars of smoke. It's all gone." And to think 3 hours before we had gone in just to mind our own business. And then literally in the blink of an eye, it was gone. And it was after that that I tried to call my wife again. And this time I got through. It was about 10:31 or so in the morning. The towers had collapsed. And she is the first to tell us how 2 aircraft had been hijacked, crashed into the towers, one into the Pentagon, and a fourth was still missing over Pennsylvania, which is, of course, the one that crashed in Shanksville. And so that's a good part of the story. It gives you the basic sum and substance of it. After that, people started, well, the media got my story, and then people started calling and saying, "Gee, would you come and tell us the lessons we should learn from September 11th and tell us what we ought to take away from that and give us other life lessons that we should learn?" And by the beginning of 2002, that morphed into a full-time speaking career instead of staying with quantum. It just seemed like the thing to do, selling life and philosophy rather than selling computer hardware and being a computer hardware sales manager. So we did that and moved back to California. Karen was born in California. I was born in Chicago. She would never let me call myself a native, even though I moved to California when I was 5. But she was a native from the beginning. So we moved back to California. We were in the northern part, North Bay area of near San Francisco until 2014, and then we moved down to Southern California, where we live now. Um, Karen passed away in November of 2022, so we have 40 years of marriage and great memories. But she passed away, so now it's me, my 8th guide dog Alamo, and a cat Stitch, who is our cat who keeps us all on our toes.
They're the watchers, they say.
Oh, at least.
That's what they say. I don't know if I believe it. But,
she likes to get petted. Whenever she's hungry, she'll come and bug me until I go pet her because she just loves to get petted. So I have to pet her and we pay obeisance to the cat.
Yeah, we all operate in their world in their time.
Yep. And they don't let us forget it. It's okay though.
No.
She's a cutie. She's 16 and a half. She's a cutie.
Well, yeah. My wife gets up and goes to work early, and as she oversleeps, the cat is literally outside of our bedroom door, scratching on the door, screaming, and because he knows, wait a minute, something's not right.
Yeah,
I'm not getting fed. You're not out of here. So
yeah. Well,
so, yeah, makes sense.
My cat sleeps right up next to me. She smushes up against me, which is fine. I'm glad she does that. I'm glad she likes me well enough to do that.
He did when he was younger, but he doesn't anymore. I don't know why. He likes to prowl the house at night, I guess.
Yeah, they got different ideas.
They do. So when I'll tell you from my version, I was in East Tennessee, and we were in a CPR class. I was becoming a CPR instructor. And we all had radios. Of course, they were off.
Yeah.
But we all, at that time, they had the digital pagers that you could read text.
Yeah.
And we all wore one because, we all worked for different agencies.
Right.
And all of ours started going off, buzzing. You could hear them all. And so the instructor finally turned around and he goes, "Okay, stop playing with your phones. We're going to take a break." And that's when he picked his up. And we were in a fire station, like I said, rural East Tennessee County. And we go out into, it's essentially their living room, their day room. And they have, I think, ABC News on. And they are like, "We've closed the doors. We've locked the doors. We've pulled the windows." That was what all the paging was about. They were telling everybody in the fire service and EMS, lock your doors, close your doors, do everything, secure yourself. Don't go do anything until we tell you. And so this is before the second plane had struck.
Yeah.
And so we're in the day room talking about, well, gosh, how the heck does a pilot not miss, that, and then we saw the second one fly into it.
Yeah.
And the first thing, my mind couldn't fathom what I was seeing, because my first thought was, how could there be two pilots that stupid?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it hit me. It was like, no, that was intentional.
Yeah.
And we are now at war with something.
Yeah.
And that was we had to go back and finish class, and all of our things were going on. Emergency services across the country work as a team, even though you don't know that. TEMA, Tennessee Emergency Management, immediately sent out a message that they were gathering from all the EMS providers to back up New York with ambulances, and they needed volunteers. And of course, I volunteered. My wife shot me when she found out later. But and what we would have probably never made it to New York, but the way it would work, we might backfill Fairfax, Loudoun, Prince William, the counties right there by. We would just be backfilling, like, let's say we made it to Richmond. Richmond is in Loudoun, and then, so on and so forth. So we'd just be backfilling is the way it works, and running the calls in that community. But we never got the call to go.
Yeah.
I think everybody ambulated to the hospital. I think there was only one person actually transported at all. So it was really odd, and we were all like, well, what can we do? What can we do? And straight down from, it wasn't Homeland at the time, but FEMA, they were saying, stay, nobody move, stay.
Yeah.
We don't know what's coming next. And so and that's hard to do. Also, and you probably heard the noise but didn't recognize it. As firefighters, we have pass devices, and what they do is, if you're still for a certain period of time, it starts beeping. If you're still a longer period of time, it starts vibrating. And if you're still and haven't moved at that time, it sounds an alarm. And that's, like I said, we were sitting in a fire station, and we could hear all of the passes. And that was one of the most, wow. I mean, and because it was so loud to us, obviously.
Sure.
But we knew there were many of them. That wasn't just one that you could hear through a microphone down by it. And so we were, that was a tough moment. And I'm going to be honest, Dennis Smith, he's an author. He wrote Report from Engine Company 82. The reason I got into trying to write and got into the fire service, Dennis Smith, he was there. He lived in New York. He was a New York City resident, and he went back. He was retired and helped out FDNY. And I have an autographed copy of his book, Report from Engine Company 82, the World Trade Center, or something like that. It's his updated book. I haven't, even to this day, we're approaching 25 years.
25 years.
Yeah. I have not been able to read it and bring myself to it. And I get so aggravated and annoyed with these people that are like, oh, that's a conspiracy. It didn't happen.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm sure you do. Now, if it was inside job or whatever, we'll never know. I mean, yeah.
Well, sure we will. I mean, it wasn't an inside job. I mean, something hit the building tipped, and then it came back, and we smelled jet fuel all the way down the stairs. It wasn't an inside job.
No.
Some people try to justify it, but they should get a life. And I wouldn't wish them needing to be there on anyone, but by the same token, they should get a life. It wasn't a conspiracy. This actually happened, whether people want to accept that or not. And I only use as my strongest piece of evidence, I was there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, it also could be that, like, I was having a hard time digesting initially. Maybe that's part of it. People can't digest that we were attacked on American soil.
Well, yeah, part of the issue is, of course, for most people in the U.S., what happened on September 11th is only as big as pictures in their newspapers or their television screen. And so one of the things that I do when I speak, and I did a little of it today with you, but when I tell the story, and I oftentimes go into more detail, and I also do other things as a speaker, I believe my job is to connect with an audience and to talk with an audience, not talk to an audience. And so I've learned how to tell the story in such a way that I actually bring people into the building with me. And I want them to essentially, although they've got eyesight primarily, look at it from my point of view as to what happened and what we did. And I have so many letters from people who say things like, "We were there in the building with you, and you took us down the stairs and you brought us out." And today, especially, that's important because we now have a whole new generation that have absolutely no memory of the World Trade Center. And my job isn't trying to make it graphic and horrible or anything like that, because um, you can make it as horrible as you want, but that's not helping. What people really need to do is to learn that this occurred, and we need to do what we have to do to make sure that it won't happen again. But the reality is that it did occur, and while some people died, and people say, "Well, are you sad because you're still alive and they died?" And my response is, God brought this. God didn't do this. We did this. People did this, but God gives everyone free will. And our job when we go through something like this, if we survive, is what are we going to do about it? How do we help the world move forward? How do we ourselves move forward? And that's what I believe we need to do, because this did occur, and the issue is for everyone who survived, what are we going to do about it? What do we do to help people move on? Well, I've written 3 books now. I wrote Thunderdog, this true story of a blind man and his guide dog and the triumph of trust at Ground Zero, which was published in August of 2011. Larry King wrote the foreword for it from Larry King Live. That was really nice. He did a great job. And it actually one week was the #1 New York Times bestseller, but it was on the bestseller list for 13 weeks. I wrote a book for youth called Running with Roselle. And then in 2024, I published a book, and my thought was it was going to be to help people hopefully learn how to control fear because of all the fear around the pandemic. But it was also a book that used examples of things I learned from my 8 guide dogs team members and my wife's service dog, um, that teach us so many things, both about controlling fear and living life. And that book is called Live Like a Guide Dog, Stories from a Blind Man and His Dogs About Being Brave, Overcoming Adversity, and Moving Forward in Faith. And all 3 books are available wherever books are made available. But Live Like a Guide Dog is all about things like one of the things that happened the next day on the 12th of September is I happened to call the school where I've gotten all of my dogs, which is Guide Dogs for the Blind in San Rafael, California. And I talked to one of the veterinarians, actually was the head veterinarian, and I said, how is this going to affect Roselle? And his question back to me was, did anything directly threaten Roselle? And I said, no, nothing directly threatened her. And what prompted the story and the discussion was that when we got home, I took Roselle's harness off, and I was going to take her outside after taking the harness off. She would have none of it. She ran off, grabbed her favorite tugboat, and started playing tug of war with my retired guide dog, Linny. It was over for her. Dogs don't do what if, and we what if everything to death. And we can learn so much from dogs if we would only worry about the things over which we really have some influence and not fret over everything else. It doesn't mean don't be aware, but you don't have to fear it. You don't have to worry about it because you don't have control over it. And if we will learn to focus only on the things that we can control and not worry about the rest, we'll have much less fearful lives. And that's one of the lessons from Live Like a Guide Dog.
So true. Now, you said that she was perfectly calm up under your desk. I know that there's the relationship with the dog and the training, but at any point in time, did you feel like she was fearful?
No, because I kept praising her as we went down the stairs. Good girl, Roselle. What a good job. All the way down the stairs, I did that. And I did that because it helped me, but it also did help her. She looks to me as the team leader. She looks to me to decide how she should behave. If I were fearful, she'd have been very nervous, but I wasn't. I wasn't exhibiting it because it wasn't going to do any good to be fearful and allow that to happen. So the bottom line is that I focused and was able to keep her focused. So no, we did well all the way down the stairs and all the way through the whole day.
That's incredible. Was she covered in dust and stuff?
Oh
From
yeah, we both
yeah,
were. Yeah.
well, yeah, I've seen pictures. It's horrible. Um, when you get a dog, they are already trained somewhat, correct? And then you spend time with them. How does that
Most
process work?
Mostly that's the case. There are some people who self-train their own dogs, but I've always gone to Guide Dogs for the Blind to get my dogs. They're trained, they work with trainers. Every dog has its own unique personality, which sometimes people don't really understand. One of the things that the school does is it gets to know the people who are coming in to get dogs. They know me pretty well. I got my first guide dog from there in 1964, so they got a big file on me. But the idea is that they use all the information they have about me, how fast I walk, my needs, where I'm going to be working with the dog, and they use all of that to try to make the best match they can between dog and person. And generally they're pretty successful. Sometimes it hasn't worked. My sixth guide dog was named Merrill. When Roselle retired in 2007, I got Merrill. But Merrill pretty quickly became very fearful of guiding. And so she only worked for about a year, little over a year before we had to retire her. And she then went off to live with someone else. But then I got my seventh guide dog, Africa, and Africa's mother was named Fantasia, and Fantasia happened to be a dog that we adopted as a breeder dog for Guide Dogs for the Blind because the breeders live in people's homes, not at the school. You don't want to keep them in kennels all the time. So we got Fantasia. We kept her as a breeder. And so she went off every so often to do her puppy thing. But she also figured out how to be a service dog for a lady in a wheelchair. If Karen dropped something, Fantasia figured it out and she'd pick it up and give it to her, for example. So um, the dogs do get a lot of the training, but then you're right. Ultimately, we get the dogs and we have to continue the training. Training is an ongoing thing, or it should be. It never really stops, and it doesn't stop for either of us. We learn how to bond. Our time at the school gives us the opportunity to really learn how to bond and start to work together. But I think it takes a good year to truly get such a seamless bond that we really know what each other's thinking. But that's such a beautiful sight and a beautiful experience to have a teammate that you can do that with.
And you're right. They each do have their own personality.
Oh yeah.
Um, and they're like humans. Having worked around dogs, I never really worked with police dogs, but I worked with search and rescue dogs. And
Hmm.
we would, at our station, we would occasionally have them. They would go to different places and they'd hide stuff, and then they'd send the dog to go find it. So they were always training, and we got to meet a lot of the dogs. Incredibly intelligent.
Yeah.
And my uncle was a veterinarian, so I already knew that, but I never knew like their sense of smell. The instructor for the fire department said, I can take one drop of this and I can put it in the farthest station south of here and they will be able to smell it.
Yeah. And find it.
And I was like, wow. He goes, it's almost as if they taste things. He says, you got to
Yeah.
get out of this, oh, I smell a rose. Well, they smell a rose too, but they taste it.
Yeah.
And it's incredible how they do it. And now they have animals that help everyone predict diseases now. So
And a lot of that is because and a lot of that's because humans give off pheromones, like if they're going to have a seizure or an insulin reaction or other kinds of things. I was at a function with a guy who trains Portuguese water dogs, and they're show dogs. And he was telling me about one event where they went to a dog show and his dog was being judged. And whenever this woman came by, one of the judges, the dog just laid down and wouldn't cooperate with the judge at all. And the guy couldn't figure out what was going on until he got home. It was like on a Monday after the show, and he suddenly realized, oh my gosh, I trained the dog to lay down if it detects cancer, because
Mhm.
you can give a dog the ability, you can give them the scent of cancer, and so they can learn that. So he called this judge and he said, "Do you have cancer?" And she said, "No." And he said, "If I were you, I'd go get checked out." And he explained that the dog was laying down, and he thinks it was because the dog was queuing off cancer. Well, she called him back the next Friday and she said, "I went to the doctor as you suggested, and they diagnosed early breast cancer. So your dog saved my life."
Yeah. I'm happy to say our fire department, DeKalb County, Georgia, was a part of some of the first training for that.
Hmm.
They told all the firemen we would give them samples when we were clean, and we would give them samples when we were dirty, and we would send them off with other departments, and they would sniff. And when they would get a hit, you'll get called into headquarters. None of us did, but they were that was what they were teaching the dogs to
Yeah,
do, and
yeah,
they needed all these different people. So I mean, our department had like 600-800. I mean, we were a pretty large department.
yeah,
And then and they got the smells from, right after coming out of a fire, and then they got the smells. You couldn't I don't remember the rules, but when you were clean, you had two separate samples you sent them. And I was like, this is crazy. How are they going to detect it? And at the time, a friend of mine worked at an oncology clinic. I ended up working with him, and I talked to the doctor, and he said, "That's 100% correct." He said, "They can detect it. We haven't got it down yet." He said, "But we can detect it." He goes,
yeah,
"Before I can detect it with blood work and all this stuff." And I'm like, that's incredible, you know?
yeah,
Um, and
yeah.
the bond with a dog is so special and unique. And like you, I've had a couple dogs. I mean, mine are just pets. Well, that's not the right word. This my last one. She's a rescue. She was one of the hurricanes that come through the
Mm,
south. Um, she was found wandering in the street down there, so they brought her further north, and she had no fur when I got her.
mm.
And I thought by her looks she was going to be a Chesapeake Labrador. And so I got her, took her to the vet, and he's like, she's got bad skin allergies. So we started treating her and doing the medicated stuff. She has more hair now than any dog I've ever met in my life. Uh, but there was a bond there because she recognized whatever situation she was in, and she came here. She'd already had a litter of puppies,
Yeah.
so she was at least 2 years old. And she knew I was putting this stuff on her every night, and I was get she knows when her medicine's in one of them,
Hmm.
one of the treats. But with such a bond, she can look at me now, and I can almost read her mind. It's
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
we had this communication, and I'll be like, "Don't argue with me," and then she'll kind of just look at her head and kind of go, "Ugh."
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Well, and people really need to learn that dogs can be so valuable in any family situation, but you need to really learn to work with them. Several humane associations and humane societies have told me over the years that they offer a lot of classes to train dogs, but as they all point out, 90% of it's training the human, not the dog, and
Correct.
it's so true.
Yeah. Um, and one other quick story, and then we're going to run out of time. I was actually taken out of service off duty because of a pit bull attack,
Mm,
and she got like 3 good bites in, and before I realized I was attacked. But her owner was having a seizure. He was I can't use the R word anymore, but he had needs. Um, and so he wasn't quite 100% with it, had like the mentality of like a 12-year-old, and he was
mm,
an adult, and he had a seizure. And when you come out of a seizure, you're kind of confused and you want to
yeah.
fight and stuff. So she had been put up in the back of the house, and um she broke out and she came around the house, and I always kid, it's like Wild Kingdom. I must have been the oldest, slowest one. But I got to thinking about it later, talking to the surgeon. He's like, she could have really messed your leg up. And,
Yeah.
it's still 3 surgeries with the hand and the wrist, and of course, put me on a duty permanently. But the more I thought about it, the way she was pulling me towards him.
Yeah.
Now, maybe that's just me reading something into it. I don't know. And in Georgia, if a animal does that, and I had to go, of course, it was during COVID, so it was all online.
Yeah.
And I had to be the one, if the court decided to give the dog back after they paid their fines, got the inspection by the vet, blah, 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 I was the one to decide if the dog should be euthanized.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to my wife a long time about this because I did. I was mad at that dog for the longest time. And then I was like, I think she was just being a dog. And I can't put a dog to death.
Yeah.
This may be this guy's only friend in the world, and I can't do that. And she goes, well, you're going to have to tell him that. And that's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
When the judge asked me, I said, Your Honor, I realize the decision is with me and you can override it, of course, but that dog is not his dog. That could be his best friend. They could have a bond we don't understand. And I don't want to be the one responsible for terminating that. And the judge is like, bang the gavel. And he's like, go pay all of your fines and see the vet. It's like,
good deal.
Yeah. So, and like I said, I was really angry for such a long time about that, but it took me a while, to get past that, but I couldn't do that. I was like, no, that could be that guy's only friend in the world, so I couldn't do that.
I've heard a bunch of beeps. Are we getting any chat questions or anything? Or
no, surprisingly enough, that's the radio station trying to solve a problem.
Oh, all right. Well, I just thought I'd ask.
No, you're good. We're live. We're still live in Australia, but we're only live on one of the stations. We're live on, dang it, if I could figure out how to operate my computer. We are live on Radio X Gold, not the talk radio, but they'll echo it back over. So that's them trying to figure out the problem.
Cool.
So one of the things we always ask our guests, before we run out of time, I want to ask this. Have you ever had any paranormal experiences that you can relay?
Well, so I'm not convinced that this is a paranormal experience. I think it goes much deeper and much stronger than that. But one of the things I didn't talk about earlier, because I knew you were going to ask this question, is when Tower 2 began to collapse and everybody turned and ran, I turned and started running back from Vesey Street toward Fulton Street. And the first thing I did was I started thinking, God, I can't believe that you got us out of a building just to have it fall on us. And I then heard, as clearly as you hear me now, I am telling you the truth, a voice that said, don't worry about what you can't control. Focus on running with Roselle and the rest will take care of itself. And I had this absolute sense of certainty that if we worked together, we would continue to be fine. So that's why I don't think paranormal wouldn't be what I would describe it as, because I clearly heard God talking and saying what to do. But that's probably the most significant experience. One of my favorite examples is I try to teach people to listen to their inner voice a lot. And I talk about people need to learn how to be self-analytical, and they should listen to their subconscious when they're falling asleep, and they can learn so much about what happened today, why was I afraid of this, what do I do about it. But my favorite example of that, and it's happened to me many times, is I used to play Trivial Pursuit a lot. And of course that's a trivia game, and somebody reads off questions and you have to answer them. And today I talk to so many people and I say, have you played Trivial Pursuit? And they will say yes. And I said, how many times does somebody ask you a question and immediately an answer pops into your head, but you say, oh, that was just too easy, that can't be it. And you think about it, you answer with a different answer than the original one you thought of, but the original answer you thought of was the right answer. And that happens to me all the time, except now I listen to that voice, so I take that first answer, and it's usually correct. But that's a matter of listening and developing that skill. But I believe that so many things that we call paranormal, I just think we really should learn to listen to our own inner voices. We should learn to listen to what's going on around us and learn some of these skills, because they can help us in so many ways.
The part of the story I didn't tell you about my dog, and my fans at the show are going, oh God, here he goes. Before I was bit, and I can remember everything, the sounds, everything in slow motion. a voice in my head said, "Don't get bit." And I look up on the front porch and there was all these chihuahuas. And I'm like, I got my boots on. I'll be fine. And I took another voice, and this voice in my head screamed, "Don't get bit." And I'm like, what? At this point, I'm arguing with myself. So, like you,
Yeah.
I heard that. And it was another step. I was bit. Apparently, I'm a slow learner. But
Hopefully you won't do that anymore.
yeah, I won't do that again. But after I was bit, it was surreal. And like I said, everything was slow motion. And like you were talking about the voice in your head, what was that? Who was that? I couldn't tell you if it was man, woman, I couldn't tell you what it was, but I knew it was there. And I was walking around the side of the house, and my two fingers were hanging down. I could see a hole through my purple glove. And I started to kind of cry. I wasn't really in pain. And then this voice in my head said, "It's only going to hurt for a little while. You're going to be okay." And at that point, I collected myself. I went and got the drug box with one hand and took it back up there. And they're telling me, draw this up, do this. I'm like, about that.
Yeah.
I'm going to need a little
really.
So,
But your voice didn't come out and say, "I told you so."
no.
Okay.
I wish it had at this point. I wish it would have said, "Look, you're a slow learner. What's wrong with you?" So
no, I hear you. Well,
that was
and
one of the reasons I started this show. I interviewed psychics and all these people.
Yeah.
And nobody really has an answer. So I believe it is an innate thing.
I think so. I think that everyone has the ability and to one degree or another and can use it and does use it. Too many people ignore it, but it's there. And it is going to always be part of my life. And that story is always part of my life and will be. And it was really from that voice saying, "Don't worry about what you can't control," where I essentially adopted that as a mantra. And then soon after that, people started saying, "Well, we got to get back to normal. We can't let this be in our way. We got to get back to normal." And it took me the longest time to figure out why. Whenever I heard that, I was getting angry, and I shouldn't have gotten angry, but I understand why. And I finally figured it out. Normal would never be the same again, and we couldn't get back to normal, or the same thing would happen. Normal was going to be different, and normal is an ongoing moving target anyway. And it's important that we recognize that, but we can learn to live with an ongoing changing new normal if we work at it and if we listen to that inner voice, because it'll tell us what we need to know.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Chris is one of our loyal fans. He says, "Mike telling that story had me in the building. He's spot on about his storytelling. I did not want to interrupt him." So,
Well, hi, Chris.
yeah, he's my number one fan. I think he watches every show. So thank you, Chris. Now, so like I was telling you earlier, your books are available everywhere. Our listeners in Australia, if they can go on Amazon or to your website, or where do they go?
Wherever.
Okay.
They're all available. They're available from Audible. They're available wherever books are sold, so they can get them. And I'm actually traveling to Australia, to Brisbane, in August to speak at the it's the Queensland Mining Industry and Health Association conference. So I'll be speaking sometime on the morning of the 17th in Brisbane. And I'm going to stay till the 19th because I said I wanted to stay long enough to go meet a kangaroo. So hopefully we'll be able to do that. But I'm looking forward to it. I've been to New Zealand, but I've never been to Australia. So I finally get to go to Australia. I'm looking forward to that. And I come back and I'm home for just a little while, and then I do a lot of other traveling around the US.
How is traveling with a service dog different? I mean,
well,
than other things.
I will tell you that generally it works pretty well. Sometimes the airlines try to make up their own rules, which is ridiculous because there are rules. I wish that the rules were a little bit different than they are, but it's no problem traveling around the US or Canada and so on, and even to Australia. Now, Alamo, my current guide dog, is not going to go to Australia only because we got this trip set up too fast to be able to go through the process of getting rabies titer tests and other things for him. So he's going to stay with a niece and nephew here. And in December, we're actually going to be traveling to Hanoi, Vietnam. And again, I'm going to leave him home, not because he couldn't go and because there would be a medical issue, but they don't have any access laws over there. So we're not going to put ourselves in a situation where we might try to go into a store and somebody says, you can't bring your dog in here, because there's nothing we can do about that. And Alamo gets a break from me, so it'll work out.
Okay. So what will you do is there?
Well, I'll use a cane.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Same skills.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I didn't know how that would work. I mean, heck, I read you rode a bike growing up.
Yep, I did.
How the heck did you do that?
Well, my wife always swore that I didn't do it, but she not ride a bike, but she said, you don't listen. I listened, and that's how I was able to hear. If I was coming up on a car that was parked, I could hear echoes. I could hear the car and, other things like that. So riding it wasn't very complicated.
That's crazy. That's amazing.
Oh, you light dependent. It's just that you light dependent people think that you've got all the skills and you're the only ones. It's not that way. I was going to comment on that. I talked about so-called disabilities. I believe every member of the human race, everyone on the planet, has a disability. For most of you, it's light dependence. If the lights go out, you don't have a smartphone or a flashlight nearby, you're in a world of hurt. You can't get around. You don't know how to do it. And people panic. But the fact is, it's as much a disability as, in my case, being light independent, and being looked down upon by so many people who have low expectations for what blind people can do. Disability is not a lack of ability. Disability is a characteristic that every single person on the planet has. It just manifests itself differently for different people.
That's true. And having worked as a paramedic, I can tell you that we all suffer from our own different malaises. So
yeah.
I'm just crazy now. So
well, there you go.
That's what mine is. Mike, all three of your books are out now, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Have you got another one you're working on, or
not yet? But I'm thinking about it. I haven't really come up with bright ideas, but I will. But in the meanwhile, we do host a podcast. It's called Unstoppable Mindset, where inclusion, diversity, and the unexpected meet. But mostly it's not about disabilities. It's for anyone who wants to come on and tell their own stories, to talk about what they do, because I want to show the world that everyone is more unstoppable than they think they are. So people are welcome to listen to the podcast. New ones come out every Tuesday and Friday. We just published episode 461 yesterday, since we started in 2021. And if anybody wants to come on, they can go to michaelhingson.com, michaelhingson.com, or michaelhingson.com/podcast. Send me an email. I'd love to talk with anyone who wants to come on the podcast. And of course, as I nabbed you a little while ago, we're going to get you on the podcast, and that'll be fun. And we're working toward, on September 11th, which is a Friday, I'm going to have a person on. We're going to record it this coming Monday, but it'll go out on September 11th. Somebody who was at the Pentagon on September 11th. And that'll be fun. So we're looking forward to having Bob on and telling his story.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to tune in for that one, because some of my childhood I spent in Fairfax, Virginia, just outside of DC. Yeah. So, well, regardless of what your next project is, you have an open sign to come on anytime you want here. If you want to just stop in here one night and just say, "Hey, you're doing this wrong," as a podcast newbie, I would take that. But yeah, you're welcome here anytime. I'd love to have you back.
We'll do it. Would love to. Anytime you want.
All right, Mike. Well, I'm going to let you get out of here because Candace is backstage. But have a wonderful night, and thank you. I made it through the interview. My allergies kind of sucked, but
you done good.
Well, thank you. Chris says you have a new podcast listener here, so he's already went and signed up to your show.
Well, Chris, if you want to come on the podcast, we'd love to have you. Email me. Let's go to the website and send me a form.
I'm calling dibs. I've tried to get him on for a while now. So, all right, Mike, have a great night. Thank you for coming on. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. This has been fun.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh man, that was great. I wish Jen had been here, but she had some children issues, so she wasn't able to. Let me push a button to keep us legal in Australia. But as you know, stay tuned for hour 2 of the Sportcat Show. We have a second guest coming up, and you're going to love to hear her story. Let me push the right button now.
Broadcasting across Australia on Dare Media Group radio stations, this is the Sportcat Show, uncovering secret chapters, strange encounters,
and the occasional technical mishap.
Oh, there's always the occasional technical mishap. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sportcat Show, hour number 2, The Deuce. If you missed hour 1, come back and find it on YouTube. You missed a great episode. But we are going to follow it up with a world traveler. I have so many questions for this young lady, Candace McIvey. She's a author, and she has been backpacking across, well, is it across or around the world? She's globally. How about that? Let's bring her out here and have her in here to help me out. Hey, Candace, how are you?
Hey, how are you? Good.
I'm great. So I want you to tell everybody a little bit about us, but as I'm tripping and tumbling, would the correct term be around or across the globe?
Well, I think since the world is round and not flat, I would say around.
Okay,
But
I'm with you.
You could traipse across, I guess, but I would say in that context, I would say around, but that's
Okay.
just me.
No, I'm with you. So,
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I have so many questions about this. I'm a camper, but not necessarily
Ooh, camper.
a backpacker.
Well, what do you want to know before I sort of start rambling? What's your interest? What pockets are you wanting to learn about?
Well, you have been, I believe, on every continent. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and you.
I haven't been to Asia. I'll take Asia.
Ooh,
I haven't been there.
yeah.
I know, crazy. That seems like a good one to miss. Yeah, I know. I haven't been there yet.
Weeks, so.
Oh, good. Okay, well, enjoy. That sounds good.
Okay. So, how did you started this journey because you were overcoming grief? Is that correct?
Yes, it is. There's always a catalyst, and that was mine.
Okay. So you, at that time, you were a successful young business lady. You're still a young business lady. But you, with the grief, you were like, screw it, I'm out. So tell us about how that started.
Yeah, sure. I always had big plans, these fun big plans. And my mom got sick when I was 14. And so it was a full court press to look after her. As a family, we made the choice to want to look after her at home as much as possible. And she passed away when I was 22. And I thought, okay, this is where I'm going to rally and pick up my life. So I moved. I live in Canada, and I moved to Toronto because that's where you think things start, because it's so big and opportunities and all that. It's like moving to Sydney in Australia, and so I tried it. I didn't like it. I was miserable. And I really felt like there was no other option. I just really did not like the path ahead of me. I just thought, my gosh, this is a lonely existence. I had met a few friends. I knew a few people, but and they were really nice. I and I had a nice job. I thought, my gosh, I felt like I was drowning. I just was so desperately unhappy. And I just needed to not do the 9 to 5, not just crack out and try something different. So I sold a lot of stuff and packed my little few treasures in my dad's basement and left home with a backpack.
Now, growing up as a child, is this something you'd ever envision doing?
Not so much. I always had a bit of an adventurous spirit, I guess. A couple summers before, I had taken a short trip for 3 weeks and met some great people, some people that had had traveled to some places, and it kind of opened my eyes, and I went, these are some places I would like to see too. But I just felt with everything that happened with my mom that opportunity had passed me by. I was older than the average backpacker. I was 26 when I left home. So that's pretty old, like you're usually kind of into your life by then. But I just said, nope, I don't want the life. I have a great life, but it's not the life that makes me happy or fulfills me, or just I just feel very trapped. So I needed to just go.
Where was your first stop?
My first stop was London, and I ironically I had a work visa, so I went to London, and I had met some folks along the way that I met up with in London, and yeah, I did London and UK and Ireland, so it started out pretty easy, and then when I really packed my bag and put it on my back and said, okay, this is it. I'm not working. I'm just going to travel. I started in Russia, and then went all through the Baltics and kind of swirled around the world from there.
Wow. And we were, at that time, we were friends with Russia. So
Decently, yeah. I mean, I think for me, the fascination with Russia started when I was younger. It felt so different, It felt like just, you know, just that communist. It just the whole lifestyle just felt different, and I was so desperate to experience it and just to see what it was like, and it was pretty fascinating. I won't lie. So
so
yeah.
when you start these journeys, do you have the first hostel booked or the first anything? Or are you just boots on the ground? Let's see what happens.
It's very different. It was very different traveling then. I often laugh as I get out my scalpel and precision plan my holidays nowadays, because I feel like everything, like, okay, where are we having coffee? And then where are we having our snack? And then we're going to, how are we going to get there? Like everything's planned out. But this was such a different vibe, and it was a different time, and we did have to have the hostels in Ireland, sorry, not in Ireland, in Russia booked, because you had to get an invitation from the hostel to get to stay there. So they had to fax you an invitation in order for you to enter the country, to show you have a place to stay and you've been invited to come and visit. And then, so the places in Russia were booked, but past that, they weren't. You would get off the train station, you'd have to find a phone card, jam it in the phone, and open your like travel book and just start calling hostels and see if they had rooms available, or just walk around if it was a small city and see if you could find a place, or go to the tourist office. They usually had some recommendations, but there was a lot of walking and a lot of fumbling, and probably missed some things because it was just like a fly by the seat of your pants situation. But you know, I often look back at those times, and as I write these books about it, I'm not like, ooh, very exciting, but it was the things that happened in between. You think you go somewhere to see something in particular, and you're like, okay, going to see this. I'm ready to go, but it's the metro ride to get there, or the person you meet in standing in line to buy the tickets, or it's the experience usually around the event that are the most memorable and are either the funniest or the most poignant, and those are usually the parts of the story that I share in my books. So
Now, I don't want to sound misogynistic, but at any point in time, like I said, it was a different era. Did you feel threatened or intimidated or anything?
oh, every day, every day. It's traveling as a woman. I don't think much has changed. It's every day. There's always something. I had a few bad situations, and then you just have to make a choice, like how you're going to handle it mentally and just move along. And but yes, the shouts, the gropes, the bad words, everything, they just follow you every day, and you just have to power through.
Like a duck, let it roll off your back.
You do, and I hate to say it. I just, at some point, I did sort of blow up and have discussions with folks, and I don't know how you can win. I mean, I think you have to stand up for yourself in terms of, shutting it down. But sometimes when you're in a foreign country, you don't know the language, you don't know the culture, you've experienced the culture as long as you've been there, but you don't know the ins and outs of it. So just being able to, like, for example, walking around in Egypt, in Cairo, it was a 2 hours a day was all we could handle. Like, we would walk. I was traveling with these Australian girls. We would walk in a tight foursome formation, and it was almost like they had blocks. Like 4 or 5 men would follow you, screaming like the worst things you've ever heard in your life. And then you just, if you ignored them, they got more mad. If you just said, no, thank you. You'd have to say thank you, because if you didn't say thank you, they got even more aggressive. And then they would sort of peel away, and then you get to a new block, and then like another different 4 would follow you. And so, wherever you would go, it was just a constant barrage of harassment. And even when we got to the hostel, there was a whole wall of stories, and they said, read the stories before you go out, so you know what you're dealing with. And they were scary, and they were awful things that had happened to people who weren't, they didn't have their wits about them. So, and it's exhausting. So that was a little more extreme than the rest, but it's not, it's definitely a slog, for sure.
I just, on my other show, did a news article about a young lady from Australia. She was in Italy. She was with a group, and she had got on Facebook and met some other people. She was into, was it kite surfing?
Okay.
And so that she met people on Facebook. She went out kite surfing with the whole group. And during the day, and on their way, she was going to go back. And they said, hey, well, I'm going that way. Do you want to ride with me? And so she hopped in the back seat. 2 guys in one seat. The driver took off, started acting crazy. The passenger didn't even know what was going on. She was in the back going, hey, what's going on? And she's like, we're going too fast. We're going the wrong way. And she realized something was wrong. And even the guy in the front seat was like, what the hell is going on? And they go to this gated community, and the guy starts talking, and she says, this is my only opportunity. I got to get out. She bails and runs. Of course, they're looking for her. I don't know how far she ran, but she ran till she saw a police officer. She went to the police officer, and of course there was a language barrier, so she used Google Translate. And he's like, okay, I got you. I'll take you back. They went a couple blocks. He pulled into a dark spot and turned to her and said, okay, what are you going to do for me? And it's like, wow, she couldn't even trust the police. I just couldn't believe that story. I was like, that twice in one day she was nabbed.
That's crazy. That is crazy. Poor thing. You want to trust folks, but I constantly, like, if I'm feeling uncomfortable, I'm like, we're shutting it down. Like, we're out of here, I don't know. I kind of, like, she probably, that's horrible. I feel so bad for her. I was in a market in Jerusalem, and I could see this man, and he was pointing to me, and he was talking to his son, probably 10 years old. And I was wearing like full, because you cover up in the Middle East, you don't wear, there's no sort of, this would be a no, like total long pants, And he was pointing to me and said something to his son and pointed to me. And then I'm like, oh, this is like really good. And all of a sudden the son appears ahead of me, 10 years old, reaches up, grabs my chest, sort of squishes and spins it. And I'm like, I had to shove him off. And then he ran off, and then his dad was laughing and thought it was so funny. And then, the kid, I sort of tried to shaking my finger and sort of fist shaking and sort of chasing him down, but they escaped out of the market. But it was just this right, like almost like, oh, you're a foreigner, doesn't matter, so we'll just do that.
Yeah. Flight paramedic, one of my coworkers, we would sometimes take flights on commercial flights to aid people medically They may not need an ambulance, but they need an aid to take medicine, whatever.
Right.
And lady home in, I want to say Kuwait. And the husband was on the plane the whole time, and her uncle, and they had been seats behind her watching her. They got in and closed the door, and they said, "No, we paid for you. You're ours."
Mhm.
And it was the same thing. She escaped. She went to a police officer, and he's like, "Oh, come on." And she sends, "No, not good." She saw some U.S. Marines. And of course, she said, "I'm an American citizen. I've been kidnapped. They made me change into this." And of course, they went and took care of things for her. But yeah, you're right. And when we would fly over there, like my partner, she was like my grandmother, literally age wise. We couldn't walk side by side. She couldn't have her hair open. And we were fortunate because they always give us, we called them handlers. I'm sure there was another name for them, but they would tell you the rules. They're like, okay, you take it, do this, can't do that.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so different customs have so many different rules. And
Mhm.
back then there wasn't all the technology to teach you these things. So you were kind of on the fly.
Yeah, we relied a lot on the like the Lonely Planets. They're kind of heavy, but you'd have them in your backpack and you'd sort of read up what you could around before you went, and just really understanding. Most of it was dress in terms of, did you need to cover your hair? How do you need to dress? And is there certain things that you need to do or not do? And yeah, I think a lot of the places I went were pretty mainstream, so it wasn't so bad. But it did sort of, I met some folks who then said, "Oh, I'm going to go to all these other sort of deeper in the Middle East," but there's just no way I could go as a woman. Um, it just didn't. It just wasn't something I could do. So yeah, but I did get to experience what I did, and it was super fun. Like we made our own fun, and we played a lot of cards at nighttime because you couldn't go out. And drank a lot of Diet Coke. So there you go.
How is the language barrier back then? Are you multilingual or?
No, I speak French. I grew up in the French part of Canada, so and then they would probably argue that I don't speak French well enough, but I speak French well enough to get by, and that didn't really help me anywhere in terms of like the more Russia, Poland. Like in Poland, that was more. We use a lot of sign language, and we ate at busy places. So the strategy is, so when you don't have Google Translate, to find a place, either you have a slice of pizza because it's always good, it's to some degree, it's always good, right? And or you go to a busy local place and then you take turns walking around, and then you see someone's plate that looks interesting, and then you just point to the plate and say, "I'll have that." So that works good. Other is the old fish, and we make sounds for cow or just to understand what kind of meat it was. Happily in Poland, they had a lot of vegetarian places, so we didn't have to play meat roulette and see where we ended up. But yeah, and a lot of times spaghetti. So words like spaghetti and omelet are quite universal. So you can usually ride the omelet spaghetti line pretty hard and just sort of see where you go. And when all else fails, there's always making a sandwich out of stuff from the grocery store. So
Sure.
that usually was that bench sandwiches was a usual meal staple. But yeah. So that was usually how we rolled. We managed. You manage. You do. You just, sometimes people yell at you and they don't have any patience, and other times people find it funny. So, there you go.
I'm sure. I knew Chris was going to comment. He's my Chicago listener. He says it's never been a bad choice in his entire life. So
Right. So, you can always find like a slice and then you point. One time we were in Russia, and we were doing the mime, like, because actually when you go to Russia, this is one and this is two. So for a while we were doing two and we're getting three of everything. So, and we were having we're like, no, we want 1, 2. And she goes 1, 2, 3, because that's their automatic one. So for us, this is 2, this is 1, 2 for them. So if I do that, then I get 2. Otherwise, they just think you forgot the thumb and sort of gave you 3. So anyway, so we were like two like chicken sandwiches. We were doing the whole like miming it, you know, because they had a board, but we weren't quite sure because it's all written in Russian. And it was just a chicken place. Like the guy literally had like a chicken hat on. And he just looks at us and he goes, 2 chicken combos and Diet Cokes. And we're like, yeah, all right, that's great, thanks. And I had no idea this guy spoke English. And it was perfect English too, but he let us go on for so long. Anyway, it was.
He was having fun with it.
He was probably just pissing himself, laughing, just going, "Oh my god!" But yeah, so we had miming and a lot of stuff. But anyway, so that's where you go.
What was the worst thing you ever ate? Do you remember?
There's a lot of bad things.
3 is
actually
better.
3 slices of pizza, that 4 seemed better. Actually, I have to say there was one really bad pizza, and I've never had bad pizza in my entire life. We were in this place called, I don't know if you say Zakopane or Zakopan in southern Poland, and we ordered a pizza. And I will eat pizza every day, all the time, but literally this was the worst thing. And it happenstance, we each kind of struggled through a slice, but we had ordered a large, so there was so much pizza. And this little boy came by asking for money, but we just gave him the rest of the pizza, and he was so happy. So it worked out really well. So I would say that, but with a happy spin on it. So there you go.
Yeah, you may have fed his family.
He was
because there's no bad pizza, only better
pizza. Yeah, there you go.
In your travels, what was your worst? So we got your worst. Which was your favorite or your best?
Ooh, okay. Best. Oh, this was. I know. So Poland again, and it was so hot. Summer is like hot, like it is now, and everything we were drinking was like the cold, like the hottest water, like you know when you have water in your bag and it's like fusty from being in plastic, and we just so happened to walk by this one place, and they had like pressed panini sandwiches. We've been eating like with our Swiss Army knife, like, you know, French bread or whatever, like hunks of cheese and like red pepper sort of smooshed together on a park bench. They had these beautiful panini presses, and then they had orange juice, like real orange juice with ice cubes. Yeah, and it was air conditioned. So by far best meal. And it sounds so simple: glass of orange juice, pressed sandwich with crusty on the outside, you know, so good. Anyway, that.
You still remember it today? So yeah,
I do. Yeah.
So you had to meet some interesting characters. First question: did you keep in touch with any of them? And
yes. I have definitely kept in touch with folks over the years. There's someone I met in the first part of my first book, and we kept in touch, and then we met up again, and then we ended up living together. And then she's English, but she lives in Sydney now, and I went and stayed with her family when we were there a couple of years ago with my kids. And so yeah, we still stay in touch. And there's lots. I have to say there's a handful of folks, even after all these years, that I still keep in touch with and still would consider just like these kind of friends that just sit right in there. So yeah,
that's cool. And so part of the basis that started your book was your journal in your, so to speak, letters to home, because that was the beginning of the internet. So you had email, just had to go find a place. So how did you? I mean, emails are forever, I guess, and you kept your journals. How did you? What was the trigger that said I can put this to a book?
You know, it might have been my dad, because my dad, I don't even know if it was like it probably wasn't a floppy disk. I'm really dating myself now. No, it was probably a stick or something. And he had saved all of my emails. He'd saved them all and put them on a stick, and then gave them to me years after I came home, and just said, "Oh, you know, I have these. I don't know if you wanted them." And then I looked at my journals, and I looked at the stick, and for the longest time, I just let the story marinate, because it was so, so much happened, and so it was it's quite a personal journey and quite a deep journey, but also a fun one. And I didn't at the time, when things feel overwhelming, right? You're just like, okay, that feels like way too much to do, because you know, I had hundreds of that. Like I probably had 500,000 words of journal, and just my 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 emails and all that. And I didn't know how to structure it. I didn't know how to put it together, and I didn't know how to make it a compelling read where someone would just be like, just this is like going through someone's holiday pictures. Like a few of them are interesting, but really, do I care? And how did I make this into a story that someone would enjoy and someone would read and someone would say, oh my gosh, this is so funny? So I had to it had to marinate. I also, as a person, had to mature and have some space from the trip to be able to objectively look at it and say, okay, what are the interesting parts, and what are people, what is this story about? So there's 5 books in the series, and oh my god, I know, so 5 sounds like so much, but I started to write, and I don't know where my brain was, but I thought, oh my gosh, this will be one book, it'll be so interesting, and it just started. The words just grew, and I kept slicing them off into different parts, and then I landed in these five books, and got to a point where each book has its own story arc. Each book has its own like journey within a journey, and it's one continuous story. So all of the 5 books pick up, like the second book picks up, or the third book. But you can't just pick up one and just read one. Like my whole goal was that I wanted each book to sort of focus on a different sort of moment and I almost call, like, although it's me that this happens to, I call it like a character, because for me it was, if I can just look at myself, I'm sort of such a different person then, and just look at how I grew, how I healed, what happened, what was good, what was bad, and just try to really bring out the humor. And my goal was that if you pick it up, you're like there. You're in the 90s, which is such a unique time period because it was just on the cusp of the internet. We still had phone booths everywhere, and you could, if you had an hour on the internet, it was like, and
Yes.
I know you would have just so much time it would take forever to load your emails, and you just really had time to email. You didn't have time to search, like stuff wasn't there. Like the internet was such a baby, there wasn't this sort of just go into the vortex and find out, where you can get those exact socks you saw someone wear the other day. Like that's just not what it was, right? It was very much around just communication tool, or light information, but it was very intimidating for most folks. So it wasn't used like that. People were still reading newspapers. You were still, you weren't getting your information as much through the internet as you are now. And just having to, and I think the other interesting thing is that before I take a holiday now, I will I will have researched everything and pretty much know what everything looks like before I get there, right? I even know what I'm having for lunch because I've seen it on the menu online. So, but then I didn't know what things looked like. I didn't know what to expect. You had like a line saying, "Ooh, you must see this. It's very interesting and it's blue." Like, okay, sure, I'll go see something blue. Like it was much more this sort of openness of trying stuff. And sometimes it was a total dud, and you'd sit there and you'd be sweating and just going, oh my God, I can't believe I spent like half a day traipsing across town to get to this thing. But other times it was just like really cool treasure, so you just never know what you're going to get. And what I wanted was people to experience the highs and lows, and most of all the people that you meet along the way, in terms of the people you interact with, or just funny things that happen that probably wouldn't happen today. Because I don't know about you, but I could sit there sometimes and watch folks. And I remember I was sitting there, I was waiting for someone. I wasn't on my phone, and I saw this young man. He was quite attractive, and he was looking at his phone. And this beautiful girl walked by, and she just like she saw him, and she was kind of walking by slow, and he didn't look up. He didn't see her. They didn't have that moment. And I was just like, dang, you know, I wanted to like throw a rock at him or something. Get off the phone. Just look out what's happening right in front of you. But yeah, so it was just such a different time. And you would sit and watch people. You would sit and, you know, and just enjoy the moments. And that's what these books are about. They're funny, they're sad, they're, you know, they drag you through all kinds of emotions and experiences. And I wanted you to be hot, and I wanted you to be cold, and I wanted you to be worried, and I wanted you to be, you know, frustrated, and all the things. So you get dragged through the whole thing, but I try to keep it as light as possible, even though some of the topics get pretty heavy, but it does sort of lend itself to be light and fun. And that was the goal.
Now, you weren't trained to be an author, though. That wasn't your...
No. I've a lucky sort of, you know, bunch of education that has nothing to do with this, and helped me very much in my corporate career. But when I did a sort of second part in terms of when I looked around at my life then and said, oh no. And then I did a similar thing when I looked around at my life and my kids were growing up really fast. And I just went, ooh, okay, hold on. This is happening way too fast. And I'm going to miss everything if I don't make a change. And that's when I left the corporate world and started to mom it, if you will. And I hadn't mommed it like ever. So I was like, okay, this is new. And then I decided to start writing, and I thought, oh, I can do this. Well, let me tell you something. It's a whole different skill and a whole different set of competencies that you need to be able to write, which I had none of. So it was like going to school again, which actually was exciting because I had missed learning something new, and I enjoyed the challenge. It was frustrating and different sort of retooling my brain, and I enjoyed it a lot. And I enjoyed it even more when I met a few folks who could really help me improve. So it took years and years to write the first book because I thought I knew what I was doing, which is usually the dangerous zone. That's the dangerous spot when you think, oh, this is so good. And then someone says, okay, so first of all, and then the list comes out and you're like, and then once you kind of eat your humble pie, and then you look at the feedback and go, okay, yeah, you're totally right. And then, you know, keep working on it and keep building the muscle and the competency of those completely different skill sets. I was writing PowerPoint presentations with like risk analysis, you know, each slide finished with a point, you know, and writing is completely different. You know, you don't want to finish anything. You want them to keep reading, keep them on a note and keep them hanging and go to the next one. Like, whoa, that's all different. So it was just something as simple as that. So yeah, it was a humbling journey. And you know what? I get very jazzed now about a good sentence. My life is completely different, and I'm very nerdy. I'm all about words. I get very excited if I can be economical, and I get very excited if I can use one word that saves three. And these are the kind of things that I get excited about. But you know what? That's okay, because normally I don't tell people that, but I'm telling you. But I don't care. I love it. I love it. I love writing, and every day I do it, I have fun, and it completely fills my cup. So I'm very lucky.
You're still journaling?
No, I'm writing like books, writing all the books. I don't journal anymore. I think, you know, it's funny. Someone asked me if I'm still journaling, and you know, journaling for me was so good when my brain was so heavy and just so much going on. I find if now I don't need it as much. I feel much more comfortable in myself. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't find a space for journaling. I just enjoy writing and kind of spending my time using my words that way and creating like stories or whatever, rather than just dumping my thoughts on pages, which is kind of what I needed the journal for.
So are you going to dip your toe into other genres?
Yes. So the plan is these 5, and this was where I wanted to sort of, I felt, I don't know. I met someone early on who told me if you have a book inside you, it's your obligation to write it down. So I took that to heart years and years and years later and did it. And I kind of came to the conclusion that I think most folks can write a book, but can you write a good book? This is the question. And the difference to me is a lot of editing and a lot of time and a lot of questioning and saying, okay, does that need to be there? And I for one point in my career, I used to help people with their resumes. I worked in HR for a while, and I would always say, okay, well, every line on your resume needs to, like, it needs to tell me something. It needs to have a point, or it doesn't deserve to be there. Like, this is a very economical document. You need to be very thoughtful about, why are you putting this line and why do I care? Like, I need to have it there, or it doesn't belong. And I kind of got that way to books now. I feel like if I'm writing something, I want to make sure that either it's leading up to something else, it's concluding something, it's, I have a bunch of strands that come through stories, and I want to make sure that they're all connected. So each time I say, okay, well, this is connected to this, so it deserves to be there. And so that's what I'm learning now, right? In these 5 books, putting these together in a way and taking a bunch of journals, which a lot of it was blah, 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 and turning that into a compelling read where you're like, oh my God, this is really fun, right? I want you to read it and just like laugh and go, oh my God, this is hilarious. I'm having such a good time reading this book. That's my goal. So then what next? So my next is, okay, so this is why I picked you to talk to. So I dream.
Thank you.
I know. So I dream in science fiction. I know it sounds so weird, but I dream in like outer space, like settings in outer space. I literally think I'm dreaming up science fiction books as I dream. So I'm feeling like I might go into like space romance books, and I'm so bizarre, but I grew up with like Star Trek, Red Shirts, Captain Kirk. If you like if you made me arm wrestle and say, okay, which one are we going, Star Wars or Star Trek? Don't tell my kids, but I would say Star Trek. They would be very disappointed with me, but I freaking love Star Trek because this whole like going out into space, I'm like, I totally would have been in the academy. I would have gone. I would have done all of that anyway. So that's where I think I'm going to go next. I was thinking murder, but I don't think my brain is twisted enough to write a really good murder. I think you need to be a little bit twisted, just like in terms of, maybe even secretly twisted. But I feel like I'm much more on the nerdy sphere. So I'm feeling like science fiction. But every book to me has to have love. So I would probably want like romance.
That was going to be the next question. Is this going to be like a spicy type of space?
Oh, yes. I think there needs to be romance. How heavy I'm going to get into the spice, I don't know. I have to sort of see in terms of how much sort of I want to put in there, but I'll see. Usually, I don't know. In my experience, I've talked to different authors who kind of really gone full into the spice, and they usually started a bit later. So maybe you need to work. That's another muscle. So it's really bad to call it a muscle, but it's another skill, competency you need to develop. So in terms of how to sort of spin that into a story. So I don't know. I feel that but I don't know. I just know that I'm excited to see kind of where I go next. The other thing I was thinking was maybe some sort of real gritty kind of like just like a gritty kind of character who travels around, because then I've been to quite a few places, so I could remember those places and have scenes happen in those places. So, but it is kind of fun to build like an outer space world. And I'm going to say outer space even more because I feel like space stuff is easier than world building fantasy. So when you think about world building fantasy, it's like a whole there's like
Yeah.
maybe a language, and there's like maybe different trees and oceans, and you have a whole. But I feel like in space, it's almost easier. You can have the sci-fi without as much world building. So maybe that's why. I don't. That's where
Are
I'm
you
at.
the, are you the type of author that is everything is well detailed and you got like a outline, or are you what they call a pantser?
Yes. So far, I would probably say I'm more of an outliner, but not to an extreme of so outliner. Have you ever done mind mapping? Tried that?
Um, I've had some
No.
people on the show and they've done things to me, but I don't think so.
Okay, so no, it's not like that. So you
Like,
basically take. Oh, well, I'll show you what a mind map looks like. Look at this. This is not a great mind map, but I just did this one earlier. So basically, you put your topic, in the middle of the page, and then you have like arcs that come out and say, okay, what do you want it to do? So I'm a big mind mapper. I like, because my brain goes. So when you mind map, the wonderful thing about mind mapping is that you can just, if you think of something, you don't have to, oh dang, I ran out of space on that line. Like there's always space that you can just plug it into a different thing. So you think central topic in the middle, sort of next level topics. And then as you add the details, you can go, oh, okay, here's a detail for that side. Here's a detail for that side. So I'd probably do more like a mind map and have a loose outline in terms of I would much more outline in terms of how I would want it to go. But yeah, I wouldn't be able to sit down and just bleh a book. I don't think that would be. That's not my skill.
They called it you wrote something in the middle and then you do something up here and up here. With the Chinese culture, and you draw a circle, and what was ever in the middle was it. That was either what you're thinking of, it's what you're going to do. I can't, gosh, it's been so long, but yeah, it was almost like you described it. Like I said, they use circles, and
yes,
where circles intersected, whatever was in that middle circle, that was it. Your brain, your body, your mind, everything was saying, that's it.
I would think that's, I don't know what that's called, but I think that's slightly different. This is more of a planning. This is more like a note-taking tool, rather for people who have scattered thoughts. I think if I was to say it in the nicest possible way, just because you have the set, like say, okay, I don't know, Math 101. Okay, so we're dealing with fractions, blah blah. Like you put all the in the next level, and then you sort of put the details around. So for me, I gave a speech at my brother's wedding, and I even did a mind map. And he yelled out, "Oh, do you have a mind map?" And I was like, I was going to be all cool and say I didn't, but I'm like, yeah, all right, I got a mind map. So it allows you to sort of have your thoughts there, and you can kind of, as long as you can talk around them rather than a sort of like a free form note thing, it allows you to be a little crisper and a little briefer, and I kind of like that too. So yeah, anyway, yeah, that's how everyone's got to roll their way. But yeah,
one of my friends he's with the 3-letter agency, and he said a lot of authors, a lot of artists, they do remote viewing and don't even realize it. They're using that inner part of their brain to either recall a memory or go somewhere else, and the pen is doing it. So you're right, yeah.
Yeah, and actually, it's proven that there's like a study pattern that they give you in terms of, say, you write it one day and then you read it that night, then you read it the next night, then you read it and you wait a week and then you read it, and then by the time it will imprint in your mind because you'll remember the pattern of where everything is, and you'll remember all your notes. So when I did a master's, I thought, oh my gosh, how am I going to remember all this stuff? But I mind mapped the crap out of that, and I was very comfortable with the material when I was able to sort of shrink it down to a size where I could say, okay, this I can remember. Otherwise, I can't remember everything. So
one at a time. Yeah. Chris says that mine sounds like a Venn diagram.
Venn diagram. You have to look it up. It's this guy named Tony Booz, and it's mind mapping. It's so cool. Anyways, for people, scatty people, if you're not sort of scatty, I don't know how well you might want a more linear process.
But I get more anxious when I'm trying to get something out that I don't know what it is. So
yeah, it actually helps you too, because if you put the central topic in your thing, you say, okay, I want to understand, I want to do renovations on my basement. Okay, so what do I want to do? I want to do the floor, I want to do the walls, I want to do this, and what do I want to do to the walls? Oh, I want to put mirrors on the walls. So you put that beside the walls, and then you just kind of go, oh, the floor, I want this kind of hardwood. Anyways, you can kind of, if your brain sort of doesn't think, just kind of jumps around, it kind of helps you, because you can jump around on the page as well and have it on one page.
You'll have to send me some details on it. So,
I will.
As long as you don't tell me, well, I didn't want to tell you this, but I'm a psychiatrist, and
yeah, I know.
You got some issues, Glenn.
Okay. No.
A couple quick questions. Coldest place you ever stayed?
Coldest?
Yeah.
Ooh. Oh, coldest. Oh, okay. Not on this backpacking trip, but we went to Australia, and we went to Australia in our summertime, your wintertime, and we stayed in a tent in Uluru, and Uluru, is that right? Did I? Okay, anyways.
I'm in Atlanta. I have no idea.
Oh, okay. In Australia. I thought you were saying something about Australia earlier. Okay, anyways, it was so cold. I had every piece of clothing on, and my daughter had everything else too. So that was probably the coldest place I stayed outside camping in Australia in the wintertime. And it's not even that wintry. So there you
go. What's the hottest?
There was definitely some times where you're probably in Africa. I was camping in a tent, and sometimes there was just no breeze, and you're just there lying in this sort of heat that's sticking on you, and no breeze, and just I know even better in Africa when we had to sleep under a mosquito net. Now I always thought, hey, why don't folks just sleep under mosquito nets to combat malaria? Because they're freaking hot. I slept under a mosquito net. It's like sleeping in a plastic bag. It is literally the worst thing you could ever do. It is so suffocating. And you think like it's hanging over the bed. It looks all romantic. And you think, oh my gosh, this is going to be so fun. It is not fun at all. Under a mosquito net in Africa, hottest night ever. There you go.
Fair enough. And at the Paramedic in me, did you ever run into anything where you had any type of emergency or needed help or care? How did that work out?
Well, there's always chronic stomach problems when you travel in the Middle East. It was pretty chronic. I think I didn't eat for like 2 weeks and just sort of sipped water. That wasn't good. I actually knew a sort of a guy who worked for a pharmacy before pharmaceutical company before I left, and he stocked me up on a bunch of samples of antibiotics. So I handled it that way. I was like had my own little traveling pharmacy in my bag, and sort of self-diagnosed and went, okay, this stomach problem I've had for 3 weeks and lost 20 pounds. I should probably take some antibiotics for. So I kind of, did sort of self-management that way. I was very fortunate. I had a lot of close calls, but nothing that warranted a deeper visit. I know some people who did and really tangled, like those folks that rented the scooter or whatever, and ate the pavement and lost the teeth and were digging rocks at it. I was fortunate for sure.
I was a flight medic, and for many years, believe this or not, here in Atlanta, before they had the trauma center in Bermuda, we were their ambulance. They would take them in, especially if they were American. They'd take them in, they'd patch them up, and we were already pre-alerted. We had an hour and a half to get airborne, and it was a 3-hour flight. And then 3 hours back to either Boston, Miami, or Norfolk. So depending, whoever would accept them, especially if they were from America. But yeah, we had a lot of scooter versus car. I remember the very first time in the back of an ambulance, and we got a sick patient, and we're going emergency, and I'm doing what I do as a paramedic, and I look up, and from the back of an ambulance, we're on the wrong side of the road. It's Bermuda. But I'm like, I started like freaking out, and the guys look at me, the EMTs look at me, what the hell's wrong with you? I'm like, we're driving this windy damn curvy road on the wrong side. And he goes, you stupid American, you're in Bermuda now. I'm like, oh, okay, sorry.
Dang it. I actually ran into a whole ship of American soldiers. They were on a medical ship, and this was in Estonia. And I had just got a case of cellulitis because my belly button piercing got infected. And we ran into these American guys, all these doctors that were on the ship. They were all in the bar. And they're telling me they're the doctors. I'm like, hey, what's this? Pull up my top. And they're all like, oh, that's cellulitis. You're going to need some antibiotics for that. So I did get diagnosed for free one time in a bar. So there you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
At least you look at seeing where I'm from originally in Tennessee. He'd look at you and go, you need some Jack Daniels. You'll be all right.
There you go.
A little moonshine. You'll be okay. Suck it up, Buttercup.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to be one of your beta readers for your next stuff. So,
good. Okay.
With me too. Plus, if you ever, one thing's funny is occasionally I'll get messages from people, the authors, because I interviewed quite a few, and they're like, all right, I'm going to put a paramedic in this, but I don't want to screw it up because I know you may read it. And so they'll ask, they'll ask for, what would he do in this? What would she or he do? So yeah.
I'm adding you to my resource list now. That's for sure.
I've done it for several. I don't want any money, just I don't know, put my name in the book and says, hey, there was this old fat guy in Georgia that
No, I'm always very nice to the folks who help me out. For sure. I have some people on I'm constantly texting my friend in England and my friend in Australia. How would you say this? And anytime I'm watching a show, and my husband likes to watch any kind of shows that are foreign or whatever, and if we're watching someone like a show based in Australia or a show based in England or Ireland, I have my phone at the ready, writing down, oh, that's how they'd say that, and that's how they'd say that. So I'm trying to be as authentic as possible because these folks I meet in all my books are all from all over the world. So I'm trying to make sure I'm staying as true to the words as I can.
Any place you still want to travel to, or are you kind of traveled out?
I always wanted to go to Nepal. That's still on my list. It was literally the first place I ever wanted to go when I left. Russia and Nepal were the two places I wanted to go. I didn't go to Nepal. I went to Africa instead, and then I kind of got sidetracked, as you do, and things happened, which if you read the books, you'll figure out. So my husband has said he'll go with me and hike the Annapurna circuit, which I want to do. So that's still on my list to do. Yeah.
And that will probably be book 6 or maybe 8. But
No more travel books. Remember, we're going to outer space.
That's right.
I know.
It's gonna be, unless you got what's the guy that charges things and take them up in the rocket and then they just balloon them back down. You gotta do that. So it's not really space, though. I'm
going to fake space. Red shirts and Captain Kirk. That's what we're doing. Yeah.
Unless an aliens read it, they probably won't know the difference. So.
Yeah, exactly. I think they'll be good with it.
What you talking about? We're purple. We're not like that.
I know.
Well, one of the questions I ask every guest is, I wanted to ask you because I know you've been outdoors a lot. Have you ever had an experience with Bigfoot, Nessie, a cryptid, or seen a ghost, or had a paranormal experience?
Well, my husband's Scottish, so every time we go to Loch Ness, we do spend a considerable amount of time looking for Nessie. So we've not had a confirmed sighting. I did have a very interesting experience with my neighbor last summer. Her best friend had passed away, and I went over to her house, and I had 2 glasses of to-go wine, and I said, get your dog, we're going to go have a walk. So we went to have a walk, and we drank our to-go wine, and in coffee cups, so nobody knew. So that we weren't those people in the neighborhood, you know. And afterwards, we sat outside my house. I had a couple of chairs and with our coffee cup wine, and she said to me, she said, you know, I asked her just to give me a sign to let me know she'll be okay. And I said, I'm sure, you know, she'll let you know. You know, she will. She'll let you know. And literally, my neighbor walked to the edge of my lawn, and you can't. We live on a cul-de-sac, and you can't see. I couldn't see the entry to the cul-de-sac. She walked to the edge of my driveway, and she turned to the right, and there was this beautiful deer standing right in the cul-de-sac. And the deer just looked over, and she, my friend, my name, like, Candace, Candace, Candace. And she went, this is it. And then I said, yeah, it is. And then the deer just went off, and that was it. So there you go.
It's interesting you say deer, because a lot of people, when they see or have a paranormal experience, even if they've seen Bigfoot, their brain registers deer. It's a common thing. Yeah. That's incredible. Do you believe in, since you're talking about all this with alien stuff, do you believe in UFOs and all of that?
For sure. Do you think we're alone? Like, geez Louise, there's so much out there. You know, I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? Absolutely.
Oh, I'm with you. I think you'd be a snob to say, no, we're it. So,
yeah.
We're just one of the snobs in the galaxies. So
I think we're probably just the sort of sad people they leave alone because we're too lame to interact with. I think there's people like way cooler than us, and they're just like doing their
We're that neighborhood you roll your windows out.
You're like, don't want to stop here.
Don't look that way, kids.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think we're that interesting. That's my theory.
That's us. Candace, I have had a blast. This hour is going by so quick.
It really has.
I followed you on Facebook, but you have my email. Get in touch. I'd like to keep in touch, have you back as you continue your journey with writing your other books. And of course, your story is fascinating, so I love it. We didn't even get, I'm sure you camped out a lot.
Yes.
We didn't even get into that. So,
well, that's the book I'm writing now. Is the book 4 is all this camping safari I did, and there's lots. Yeah, we probably do smell weird, and I also think that we're not that strong. I think there's like way stronger people out there. So if you're gonna do something, like, we're just like fragile and not that strong. So I don't think we're that interesting. Yeah. So, but yes, so lots of camping happening in this book I'm doing now. And really, I did not even know how to set up a tent before I started this whole adventure. So it was like, I had done the one time pop the trunk kind of camping, but not like, I didn't know what bush camping was, because they said, oh, there's lots of bush camping. To me, I'm like, doesn't all camping happen outside? So isn't it all camping? I did not realize that means no running water and no toilets. But I learned that pretty fast. So anyways, there's my my innocent camping journey, like all there on the pages for you. And you'll just be like, oh my God, this lady's so dumb. But anyways, I bring you along and you learn with me. So there you go.
There's an author that sold his book, How to Shit in the Woods. And I've interviewed this guy. So
shovel. That's what I learned first. Shovel. And it's very hard when it's very dry in Africa. You basically you can't like nicely scoop. It's a stab. Like it's not a scoop. It's a stab shovel. Anyway, there you go.
Were you ever alone in any of these? But just you?
Well, I went on a safari by myself, but there was a bunch of people, who were on the safari. But when you think about it, I look at it in the sense of, if something happened to me and I had to stay put and the safari would keep going, would anybody stay with me? No, because nobody knew me, right? So I kind of consider that alone. You are alone in a sense. You're with people, but how far do they have your back? If you're with someone who's got your back, who's like your ride or die, then you're like not alone. But if you don't have a ride or die and you have a bunch of people who are kind of nice to you and maybe, pass the salt or whatever, maybe get you a beverage while they're standing up, that kind of thing, is not the same as someone who would give up something to stay with you and make sure you're safe. So that's something a little different.
It's quiet and dark, and it's just you. So,
Yeah.
Candace, where can everybody find you? You've got it up there. Tell our radio listeners.
Yes. So it's CandaceMcIvey.com. I put it up there because literally you could spell my name like 20 million different ways. So it's a little bit, you have to sort of type it in exactly correct. Anyway, yes, all my information is on there. All my books are on there. I've got 3 out right now. I'm working on my 4th, which is Africa, which is like a whole dreamy situation. And my goal is for everybody to fall in love with Africa and be booking themselves a trip, because it is a phenomenal experience, if you can avoid the sleeping under a mosquito net. So there you
go. Yeah. All right. Keep in touch. You're coming back.
I will.
I've got to have you. And I will put this in the show notes as well. We'll be available tonight, probably Friday-ish night, but I'll send to you and the other people on the list the corrected information, so you can post it to your socials. Candace, it was a blast. I really had a good time. Thank you for sharing with us.
Oh, me too. Thanks for having me. It was super fun.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Yes, definitely. Take care. Have a good night. Okay, bye.
Well, that was it. We had a great night. 2 great guests as always. And I did it solo without Jen. So I think I got the hang of this. So everybody, I appreciate you watching, and WRFN and WZQR. Thank you for allowing us to tickle your ears. If you want to catch me spinning records, well, I play music as a DJ on the Thin Line Rock Station every Tuesday and Thursday, noon till 2 Eastern times. And of course, me and my co-host Brenda, we do a daily show. We are on every day from 2 to 4 Eastern time. And then, well, we'll be right back here. And as always, next week, I got some more authors lined up and some more good stuff. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I encourage you, please come over to the Sportcat Show on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. And, well, give us some feedback. Give us some love. And everything will be in the show notes for Radio Australia. So you can come to the site and find out where to find all the great authors. Everybody have a wonderful night, and thank you. We will see you soon.
You ever wonder